Our panel, I guess we'll first probably have a presentation by each one, and then we'll have a discussion between them, and then we'll be open for questions. It seemed like, based on our previous presentations, this seems to be the topic of interest. Leading off is our state president, Stu Williams from branch 149. Stu?
Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Rick. Listening to some of the previous questions, I decided to alter my presentation somewhat and kind of start out by the history of why we are where we are now in regards to having restrictions and why somebody would sue CSRS. Well, let me tell you what happened in March 13th of 2017, when one of our branches had a St. Patrick's Day feed, and it was put on by the branch, and one of the members of our branch catered the event. And at that event, they served the standard St. Patty's Day luncheon, and 9 people got sick. One of them was taken to the hospital. 8 others were seen by doctors, and that one that was taken to the hospital died. Just short of 2 years later, 2 weeks before the statute of limitations was to run, the widow of the CSRS branch member decided to sue. She sued the branch. She sued the caterer, who was also a CSRS member, and they served 13 other participants who maintain the facility where the corned beef luncheon was put on. And the suit was for unspecified damages. However, during discovery, their demands exceeded our policy limits, and it was for millions of dollars. Why were they suing the branch and not the individual members? The answer is very clear. It's because we're a corporation. And as a corporation, we have some limited liability. It's not unlimited, because we have to act like a corporation if we're going to have that limited liability going forward. And like any corporation, you have to have certain obligations towards your members, and you have to have obligations towards the general public. And in California, since we are a nonprofit corporation, we have a limited liability, provided that we do not commit gross negligence or act in a willful or wanton way. I'll explain shortly what willful and wanton and gross negligence is, and that we don't engage in any self-dealing, and we have to maintain liability insurance. In our case, we have $1 million for each occurrence, a $2 million total coverage for any claims made. So, and Craig Hoffhines will talk about this. But again, it goes back to that we have to act like a corporation. And what that comes down to is that we have certain fiduciary responsibilities. In California, under Section 5231 of the California Nonprofit Corporation Code, a director shall perform the duties of a director, including duties of a committee of the board of directors upon which a director may serve, in good faith and in a manner that such director believes to be the best interest of the corporation, with such care, including reasonable inquiry, as an ordinary person would in the like position and would under similar circumstances. In that event, then he has limited liability. Those duties that that director has under that code section are as a duty of care, a duty of inquiry, a duty of loyalty, a duty to comply with all investment standards. So we had a video not too long ago that was put on by Ed Benson and myself about the fiduciary responsibilities of the branches. This is what affords you your limited liability. You have to do that, and if you don't do that, then they can pierce the corporate veil. That is, they can go after you individually. So, you know, if you take in money, you can't just merely put it in your pocket or your own checking account at a branch level. And if you have meetings, you must maintain records about those meetings. And if you want to have insurance coverage, you have to document the fact that you're having activities to be covered during that period of time. Now, what is deliberate and willful and wanton conduct? Let me explain it this way. If you drive through a school zone and the school zone says 25 or 20 miles per hour posted, and you're driving 50 miles an hour, then you have a willful and wanton disregard for the children in that school zone. So that would be willful and wanton misconduct. If you were driving down the freeway and you're doing, if you're speeding, then that is could be considered normal negligent conduct if you're speeding. However, if you're doing 120 miles an hour, or as this Oakland Raider was recently arrested for, 150 miles an hour and intoxicated, that is gross negligence, willful and wanton misconduct. Why do we have coverage? Why do we require having insurance coverage? For they can't go after us individually. They cannot go after you as a volunteer director. They cannot go after you for being a member of your branch in order to satisfy this judgment. Now, or a lawsuit against you. The case that I previously referenced that was filed against one of our branches was finally settled this last year for approximately $100,000, which included the attorney's fees. The lawsuit, instead of being apportioned to the members, was paid out of our insurance coverage that we pay each year for. Unfortunately, after this settlement, our insurance company decided that we were a risk and they canceled our coverage. Thanks to the effort of then President Ed Benson, he was able to contact the president of the insurance company, the Philadelphia company, and explain to them that we had done everything reasonable under the circumstances to protect ourselves, for we wouldn't have this type of coverage. And the only way they were going to recover what they had to pay out was continuing to have us as a billable customer and insured going forward. California requires that we maintain a certain level of insurance coverage. And if your gross revenue is $50,000 or more per year, the California Code 5047.5 requires that you maintain $1 million worth of insurance coverage for your organization in order to have limited liability. Now, when I said earlier that we have to act like a corporation, that is very clear. we need to have minutes. We need to have an election of officers and directors each year. And then when we have events, we need to record those events as being part of our activities. And that's what triggers our insurance. So if we lapse paying insurance, or we're not having regular elections, or we're not, maintaining business records in regards to our financial situations, which is spelled out in Form 28, our record of our officers on Form 20, our filing of our domestic stock statement of information under Form 20, we would not be acting like a corporation. This is what is our security gate around us and what keeps us from being sued in total. The branch that was sued was only one of our 105 branches. If we had been independently acting without the corporate shield, they could have sued everybody in SERS, including the state officers, the other branch members. But we have created a situation where each branch is its own separate corporation. And the state is also a separate corporation for protecting our liability. So after we were reinstated with our insurance, we were notified that we would not have communicable disease coverage. Now, communicable disease could be everything from the flu to COVID to whatnot that may be transmissible amongst our members or even to our guests. So what the state board says, what can we do to protect ourselves? Well, what we did is we contacted our insurance company through our state insurance chairman, Craig Hoffhines, and to find out what they would like us to do. They gave us some guidance, which we followed. And part of that guidance was that we needed to have protocols. And that is that when you do meet, what you're going to do to try to protect your membership from getting a communicable disease, of which we were not covered for. We may be covered for having them render a defense, that is, to defend the lawsuit. But if there was a judgment against us that we needed to have a standard of care for, we wouldn't be grossly negligent. That is how they can go past the limited liability for volunteer directors. If they can prove that you were grossly negligent, well, I think we all recognize that we could be responsible if we didn't have some type of guidance as to when we had meetings, when we got together as a group. We got together, starting this last year on a limited basis. It was very slow. It was methodical, and it is starting to expand itself. My own branch started out with 40 people for lunch. It has now climbed to about 80 or 90 people, where we'd heretofore had maybe 150 members attend for a monthly luncheon. But we also needed to protect ourselves from having somebody turn around and sue us for something we're excluded for as far as insurance coverage. So with the help of Alan Melnicoe, who is our legal advisor, the board decided that we needed to have written waivers saying that if you went to an event and something happened where you got a communicable disease, you agreed not to sue the organization. I think we all recognize that if in the event that we had another claim, we would definitely lose our insurance, and we wouldn't probably be able to get insurance. When the Philadelphia company explained to us that they were not going to renew our policy in May of 2020, we went on the open market to try to find out what may be available. We were paying at that time roughly $50,000 for insurance coverage. So we put it in the open market to see what was available. And we had one other insurance company say that they would write insurance for us, but they wanted $150,000 for the annual premium. Financially, the organization could not afford that. So we were fortunate enough through the efforts of Ed to get the insurance on a continuing basis. And now with what we have done, what we are hearing from the insurance company is they're very pleased with the standards that we have established. They have basically said that we have an A+ type of rating with them going forward because of our efforts to protect our membership from this type of claim. And, our membership, the health and safety of our membership is our most important thing. But we also recognize that after in 2020, when the state board closed down all the meetings, that our organization would probably fail if we didn't continue to get together. So at the beginning of this year, we decided we needed activities. We needed to get meetings together. So that is the reason we created these protocols following what the county health departments and the state was saying about what is reasonable as far as protocols for distancing, mask wearing, etc. And we also put the additional layer of having a written waiver recorded to protect the membership. Now, I know a lot of you have questions about how do you maintain those records? What do you do as far as verifying these records? Alan Melnicoe will talk about that more under his presentation. This is an important thing that you need to maintain. These are business records. And if we were sued as a branch for a communicable disease, you can bet your bottom dollar that they would be asking, for what records did you maintain that people were observing their protocols and had signed waivers? So we needed to have a standard. Craig Hoffhines is also available, and he will talk about the insurance. And I will be glad to answer any questions that you may have in that regard. Rick?
Stu, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Alan is in the house. Greg isn't. He was playing in a golf tournament. He said he'd be racing home to sign on.
Yes.
He's not on yet, but Alan is our state legal advisor. We rely heavily on Alan in his interpretation of all the different laws. So without further ado, Alan, you're on.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I noticed that some of you have much better backgrounds than me, and I don't mean education. I'm talking about the physical fake backgrounds we put up. Rick has the golf links where I'm sure most of us would rather be rather than listening to all this legal stuff. But, it's really important, and Stu did a great job, I think, of explaining why we have to observe these formalities, including the annual election of officers and the corporate minutes, that sort of thing. If you don't do that, you're hanging out. So I'm going to go over briefly the protocols that we came up with to try to keep our insurance company happy, but we tried to keep it a minimum of formalities so that it wouldn't be a burden on the branches. And that's frankly a tough balance to do. And so we'll go over them very briefly and discuss some of the questions that have already come up and give you an opportunity to ask more questions about the formalities. Now, the protocols, first one we've already covered, and that's to, that the branches strictly observe corporate formalities such as annual election of officers and corporate minutes. So as Stu mentioned, it's really important to avoid piercing the corporate veil. The second one is a broad statement that said the branches are urged to encourage all branch members to be vaccinated against COVID-19 and to keep those, to help those branches who need assistance in providing vaccination centers and getting vaccinated. So I think all of us realize that the COVID situation is very serious, and it's all that much more serious because we don't have insurance against it. And the COVID, COVID has infected about 5 million people in the U.S., or about 14% of the U.S. population, and has killed over 5 million people worldwide, including 762,000 people in the United States and over 73,000 in California. Death rate is particularly high among older people, such as those of us in SIR. 71% of the deaths in California are of people over 65, and of those deaths, 58% were males. So we have to be very careful, not only from a legal standpoint, but from a health standpoint, to try to minimize our exposure to COVID. So what we did in protocol number 3, we said that branches shall require members, visiting SIR members from other branches, guest speakers, guests, and spouses, significant others, to be fully vaccinated as a condition of being allowed to attend branch activities which are conducted wholly or partially indoors. So this requirement only applies to indoor activities. And in the alternative, unvaccinated people can attend such activities if they provide proof of a negative test administered within 3 days. And, I don't think there's any doubt that vaccinations are the most effective protection against serious illness, hospitalization, and death from the COVID virus, even the Delta variant. And booster shots are now recommended by the CDC, but they're not currently required under the protocol, but we certainly suggest it. Activities involving indoor activities, as I mentioned, are the only ones that are covered by this protocol. But that's not just luncheons. It could include a SIR-sponsored golf tournament with an indoor meeting or dinner afterwards. The vaccination requirement applies to members, visiting SIR members from other branches, guest speakers, guests, and significant others. For example, my branch has a holiday luncheon in a few weeks in December that's going to include spouses, and we have to obtain the vaccination certificates or evidence of a test, and as we'll discuss later, a waiver from the spouses and from the guest speakers. It's a bit of a pain in the neck, but it's something that has to be done to ensure our safety and maintain our insurance. The fourth protocol is to ensure compliance with the requirements. Branches shall require attendees to the indoor activities to show the original copy or a photo and hard copy or on their phone of their vaccination record. And, why proof? Well, the problem is if we do have another lawsuit, and there will undoubtedly be discovery, and in discovery, you have to produce your record. And it's really important to have records that you actually, saw the vaccination card or the test results documentation. So this documentation is available, obviously, in the form of your vaccination card, or the digital records are available very easily online. I know I have all of these on my phone. I also have a duplicate of my card, which I keep in my wallet. And, it's no surprise that universities, federal workers, and federal contractors and other employers are now requiring proof of vaccination or a recent negative test. So we're not doing anything out of the ordinary here, we're doing something that's prudent given the circumstances. Now, this next one, Protocol 5, we had some questions on from one or more branches. It said, branches shall maintain an updated list of members who have submitted proof of vaccination and use it to check them in for branch activities involving any indoor components. And branches need not require members who are on the vaccinated list to show proof of vaccination thereafter. Now, we came up with this because we thought, well, it's a lot easier to just have a list, and then you don't have to have everybody show their card every time they come in, which would really slow things down for a luncheon or for some other indoor activity. And so it was just for convenience and also to meet the record-keeping requirement should an issue or legal claim arise as to whether somebody attended a certain event was vaxxed. Because what happens if somebody shows up and says, I forgot my card? Well, if you have a list, so what? You don't care. And it also helps avoid the difficult situation where a member says he is vaccinated but forgot his card. Indeed, the city of San Francisco requires you to show a vaccination card to get into a restaurant. Well, I was in a restaurant there recently, and the couple in front of me, person said, well, I forgot my vaccination card, but I'm vaccinated. Well, they didn't get to go in because that's not good enough, and it shouldn't be for CSRS. So we recently had a branch express a concern about having to maintain a list as part of the check-in procedure. I may have a solution for that. At my branch luncheon last week, I noticed there was no check-in list. So I asked about it, and they said, well, we don't need a check-in list because everybody in the branch is vaccinated. So they, if they show up, they have a badge, no problem. So that seems to work for me. And if not everybody is vaccinated, you can simply put out the badges of those who are vaccinated, and the others can show their card, or you can maintain the list. So I think that that meets the logic of the protocol requirement of maintaining a list. Essentially, the badges are a substitute for the list, and I think an adequate substitute. Let's see. Protocol number 6, the branches shall require all attendees to comply with the current state and county requirements related to COVID, such as wearing masks, social distancing. It's important to stay up to date on what the county requirements are. They're always changing. Some counties require masks. Some counties require other things, social distancing or whatever. And so all we're saying is comply with the county requirements, whatever they are. The last protocol has to do with the waivers. And this, I was surprised, hasn't been very controversial. We're asking people to sign waivers, and they only need to be executed once by a member, and they should be maintained at the branch level, either the original or perhaps an electronic copy. which should be fine and available for inspection by the state sewer representatives. So again, these waivers protect us against lawsuits, and there was a question as to whether they protect us against suits by the family, such as happened in the lawsuit that Stu was talking about. And in fact, there's a line of cases in California saying, yes, they do apply to persons claiming through the person who signed the waiver. So I hope this clarifies some of the questions people may have had about the protocols. They are necessary to protect us. Frankly, I've been a business lawyer in my career, and I'm not fond of regulations unless they're absolutely essential. And so we tried to keep these to the minimum. There's always, we tried to keep the record keeping and so forth to the minimum. But it's essential, as Stu has mentioned in the lawsuit, to have some proof that you actually complied with these requirements. That's all I have for today. Unless there's questions.
All right. Can we wait until the next presentation and then we'll get into the questions? So each one has
Craig Hoffhines.
Robin.
Yeah, hopefully Craig's back from the Gulf Links.
He is. He's Mr. Hoffhines is in the house. Hopefully he did well in his tournament. And so if you'll queue up or unmute, Craig, you're on. Thank you. Thank you, Ellen.
All right, well, good afternoon.
So first of all, Craig, how was your game?
Well, I'm pretty rusty. And the serves, it takes 5 hours to have a round. So at any rate, so the insurance, again, with the protocol and whatnot, and the COVID, I think everybody probably knows by now, but just in case they don't, we did have one problem that the company, as well with everybody else that's in our kind of line of work, is excluding COVID and 19, and as well as other pandemic type diseases, etc., from coverage. And we don't know exactly what that would mean just yet, because the rules of engagement, so to speak, and the lawsuits haven't gone through the courts yet. But we could anticipate that we may indeed not have coverage, and we should anticipate that. And there's no salvation from the U.S. government. They have not passed any laws that have said you can't sue. And we're one of 14 or so states that, we haven't had any relief from our state either. So this is the reason why our protocols are so important is because of the fact that we don't have any real legal protection from the government against these lawsuits. And so that being, I think that's the main thing that I wanted to emphasize. And the fact that, this previous lawsuit that we had, even though we really didn't do anything wrong, we still ended up, with over $100,000 in legal fees and blood money to get out of this thing. So it's a very expensive proposition once you get into court, or even, and in fact, we didn't go to court. Believe it or not, that would have been another $80-some thousand they estimated for us to go to court. So I don't know if any branch could afford all that, or and even the state really can't afford that kind of thing. So, and we would probably, if we had 2 claims like that within a 5-year period, we'd probably lose our insurance, which would mean that the next best bid was like triple what we were paying, or what we're paying right now. So we have a very competitive price for what we do and what we the exposure that we have and the amount of people that we have. And so it's important that we follow these protocols. Other than that, that's basically what I have. Entertain some questions.
Okay, we have Robin up, got his hand up first, and then we have quite a few questions in the chat box. So we probably get to it. If you want to unmute Robin and state your question.
Okay, well, it's kind of a question, but it's also kind of what we're doing is not when you do this, we've been putting a check mark. We've had a couple of days when we've been out, but we are requiring it being seen by an officer in order, and then we mark on our list also what officers saw the vaccine card, so that it's not only somebody saw it, but who saw it. And I was just wondering, shouldn't that be throughout the, so that it's not just, somebody going check, 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 but yes, this person saw the vaccine card.
I think you're absolutely doing the correct procedure. Greg, in a conversation a couple of days ago, thought that maybe 2 people ought to see that vaccination card.
Well, in my branch, we are requiring it to be an officer, so it's got to be one of the big sir, little sir, secretary, or treasurer has to be the one to actually note that they, put their name down that they saw the card.
Greg or Alan or Stu?
Yeah. I would certainly recommend that the 2 people look at it, and at least one of them be one of the officers. But I'll defer to Alan and Stu on that too.
Okay. Rick,
I might
Powers.
comment that
Yeah. Go ahead, Stu.
I might comment that your BEC can create a committee to do that. However, it's best to have more than one person attest to the fact that this has been verified. And if you have an officer, a big sir, little sir, etc., do so. That is great. That's it's a record well maintained, a business record.
Rick Powers, you want to unmute?
I don't know whether Alan had any further comments on that. That's my feeling.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there and had a little trouble unmuting. Yeah, I think it probably is best to have an officer, and it's even better to have 2 people observe it. Originally, we had that you'd have to keep, the original protocol said you'd have to keep a copy of it, and that was much more controversial. So I think that the idea is that it can be just verified as opposed to actually keep a copy. Because the reality is the state keeps a copy of it, and it can be retrieved from the state database if necessary. Well, I will say the state database isn't totally accurate. They only had one of my shots as opposed to 2 of them, so it had to be fixed.
Great. Rick?
Something that we've done at 104, we have the check-in list. We have 2 people checking it off for redundancy, but once the person has checked in, they've shown the documentation, and they have the waiver, we give, remember the old page savers, the little white discs that we used on our binder paper to save the sheets? We give them one of those to put right on their SIR card, their ID card. So when they come in the next time, we notice that, hey, Rick Kindle, he's already gone by. We check him off, and it saves an awful lot of time instead of having to look up and ask each time. So I wanted to pass that on. Might be something that other SIR branches could do. Just some sort of ID for those people we know, and a quick ID.
Great.
Yeah, works for me.
Thanks, Rick. Ron Irwin.
Rick, can I make a comment on that last one
Yeah,
from branch 104?
Yeah.
Is that Brandon Powers' branch?
That's, yeah, Rick Powers, Brandon Powers, one and the same. That be me.
That'd be you. Well, I want to congratulate you. I'm your regional director, and I want to thank you for doing that. I know that you guys have done that before, and I've heard that. So I just wanted to put out a congratulations to you guys on taking care of that and how you're taking care of it. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much. Kind of you. Thanks, Pat.
Ron Irwin, you're up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm from branch 149 in Napa. We've already got a list of about 140 members that have shown their proof of vaccination to one person or another. A lot of times it's been when they come to a luncheon and show it to the person who is checking them in and handing out the badges. So trying to go back and determine who verified whose vaccination card would be an impossibility at this point, and trying to have two people to view it would be a double impossibility. So I don't see that working very well.
Okay, but what about the marking the badges or simply not putting out badges of people who haven't been vaccinated and who haven't submitted a waiver?
Yeah, I like that idea, having a sticker on the badge. I'm going to recommend that we implement that, but we have a list as part of our membership Excel spreadsheet. We keep a list of people who have proven that they've been vaccinated and that they have signed a waiver, including wives, spouses, visitors, guests, are all included in our spreadsheet. And we check that spreadsheet as people come into a luncheon or an activity, indoor activity. So they are double checked to make sure that that is the case. And so we have, I think, a pretty good procedure in place and a record keeping.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in total compliance.
And I am maintaining a notebook of all of the hard copies of the waivers. So we do have hard copy kept maintained.
Oh, good job.
Thanks, Ron. Derek, you want to jump to the chat box and then we'll come back to hands?
Sure, no problem. Mark Bosch addresses one to Stu. During the COVID pandemic, we weren't allowed to have authorized branch activities. What are the current activities that the branches are not allowed to have?
Well, there are no restrictions at this point in time as to activities that you're allowed to have, as long as you are complying with your corporate governance requirements and you're approving your activities and keeping those records in your minutes.
Good, thank you. Nice and short. Gary Willett noted that his BEC requires vaccination for bocce play due to the nature of the play. Sounds kind of interesting. Do you want to comment, Gary? Okay.
Okay, I'm here. Because of everybody handles the same bocce balls, and generally they're not able to shall we say, social distance very well and playing in the same court, it only seemed reasonable that vaccinations as similar to inside made a difference. And we had a number of people who refused to play because there were people who were not vaccinated who were coming out to play.
Thank you.
And
Sounds like a good policy. And actually, I think too much emphasis has been put on, losing members who don't want to be vaccinated, and not enough on losing members or having members not attend things because they're concerned about the mingling with people who aren't vaccinated, or even mingling with people in general. We have some people in my branch I know who still aren't attending luncheons because they don't want to be with around people that aren't in their household.
Okay, moving on. Mike Garut, or Garute, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Mike, sorry, says they have a sticker on the badges of those who've proved their vaccination like other branches, and that seems like a darn good idea. Moving to Dave Smith. If keeping a vax list is just for convenience, then why does protocol say we shall keep a list rather than let us check records when we attend an event?
Yeah, I missed that last part. It is more than a convenience. It's, as I mentioned, if there is a lawsuit, we've got to produce proof that we have the records that maintain that people at an indoor event are vaccinated or have had a test within, what we said, 3 days.
Thank you. Leo Dominguez says, is it our fiduciary duty when a vendor we use for an indoor activity does not meet the local healthcare requirement to check attendees show a vaccine card? Do we need to challenge that the vendor provide this screening?
If I could answer part of that question in combination with Alan, when I spoke about the lawsuit that arose from 2017, where one of our branch members served a luncheon and 9 people got sick, 1 died. It turned out that he had represented that he was a licensed caterer, and when the local health department investigated, it turned out he did not have a current license. He was performing and doing the lunches or prepared the meal in his own kitchen, and it was obviously very problematic that he had done that. But we have a duty. One of our fiduciary responsibility is a duty to investigate. So if we determine that one of the facilities or vendors that is not in compliance, and you find that out, then our responsibility is to deal with it accordingly. And I would suggest that in order to discharge your fiduciary responsibility, you need to have that information and deal with it properly. Alan, do you have anything further you might want to add on that?
Well, the only thing I would say that we had questions coming up. The specific question had to do with whether the vendor was checking vaccine cards at the door as required by us at the cities. I know San Francisco requires that. I think San Jose might too. But what about the situation where they have serving people and you don't know if they're vaccinated or not? That is not covered by the protocols, but it certainly might be good, a good idea to ask, your food provider as to whether all the people that are serving and are working in the kitchen are vaccinated.
Good advice. Thank you. The final question that we've got here, sent by text, we are asking that the viewer write down the second date of vaccination as evidence of seeing the card. And that's all he wrote. That's J.D. Bamfield. Would you like to expand on that? If so, please unmute.
Great idea.
JD?
You might have dropped out.
I'm just looking. JD Bamfield is there. Would you like to speak up?
Just having difficulty unmuting.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
there seems to be some difficulty in the tracking, being able to backtrack who actually saw a vaccination card. So it seemed more logical, or a other approach to it was to simply be able to prove that somebody saw it by being able to write down what date was the second vaccination or the final vaccination, in case it was the Johnson & Johnson. That is a backdoor evidence that somebody actually saw the card.
I think that's a great idea. Wish we'd thought of it.
If
Okay.
I
Moving
could
on-
make a comment to that. When we started trying to figure out all these protocols and waivers, Craig Hoffhines had a full head of hair, and you can see that he probably pulled out most of it as a result of all this problematic concerns that have come up.
Sure, that's not his golf.
Oh, you guys deserve kudos for doing a great job of trying to follow all the angles. Unfortunately, trying to get the whole membership to follow through on the whole thing is like herding cats. And it's not real easy to make sure that everybody is covered. You know, my spreadsheet has gone crazy. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it looks like a disaster.
Okay. Thank you. Moving over to the hands up, Mike Garut.
I'm not trying to make work for anybody, but I'm posing the question, do you anticipate sometime soon also requiring booster information? I think perhaps when you renew your insurance, they're going to say, can you prove your people have had boosters?
Well, the insurance is not renewed until
May.
May 1st. And we'll be working on that about 60 days ahead of time. And so I would hear one way or the other about that at that point, but it normally is what, you know, they want to know what we're doing, but they don't, that hasn't come up yet, let's put it that way.
Okay. Next up, Andy.
Yes, just a couple of comments. I think Branch 35 misunderstood the profile, the meaning of what was required here, and have been somewhat confused by the emails that have come up. Where we ended up was that we require vaccination for attending any event we put on, period. Indoors, outdoors, partners, spouses, and members. And we have had no problem at all with members of filling out the profile, the waivers. We demand that they put down the manufacturer of the vaccine, the first shot and the second shot. And if they are lying, it's perjury. And so all of our members have done that. We have 200 and more of these in electronic form on a disk, which we have archived. We have moved on. We plan to have our first, well, we had our picnic, and when you registered for the picnic, we could check our database. It's a membership database, and we could easily check and find out whether the waiver had been signed. If it had not been signed, they did not get a badge printed, and they could not attend the picnic. And we've had people who came to the picnic who had not done the waiver, and we wouldn't let them in, period. Now we're moving to opening up indoor luncheons, and we're finding that only about a third of our members are willing to attend. And what we're doing is we're asking, not demanding, but asking that everyone pay in advance. And our membership database allows us to use credit cards. And so when they come on and pay in advance for luncheon in January, we can automatically, with the membership database, check to see whether their waiver is archived. And if they haven't done so, we get back to them and tell them they can't attend unless they send in a waiver. So we've gone overboard in protection, but we have left it up to the members, to be honest, without double checking on them and demanding to see cards in every case.
Yeah, well, you're doing a good job, but I think it would be better if somebody actually viewed the cards rather than just took their word for it.
And therefore, you distrust your members.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there were people ahead of me in line that said they were vaccinated, but and at the restaurant, but didn't have the proof, and so they weren't admitted.
So at the and I understand that too. At the picnic, we recommended masks, and everybody wore masks. A few people came to the picnic and had forgotten their masks, and they didn't even question it. They went back to their car and got their masks. I understand that not all branches are like ours. So.
Yeah, well, what we did is we at our branch, we had people just send in, a photocopy or a picture from their phone of their card.
Yeah, and in our case, most of them did, and they went into the archive also.
Okay, Andy, I would like to make a comment if I could real quick. I believe in our membership. However, we have ran into difficulties with members not being totally truthful. And last time we did that, it cost us over $100,000 in the Whitehorse cases. The guy represented that he was licensed as a
I understand.
to provide the food.
I understand, Stu.
Okay, thank you. Dave Smith, if you'd like to speak up.
Yeah, Alan, I would like to ask you, with all due respect, I think you've given us a 180-degree conflicting statements in the last 20 minutes. And I need to clear it up because our branch is kind of concerned about this issue. I took a note when you had your first little talk and you mentioned that the list was for ease. That was your words. And because it slows down check-in and all that kind of stuff. You said after that it was for convenience. So when I wrote a question on that, specifically why the protocol says that we have to keep a list if the list is only for convenience. And you
No, you actually misunderstood. The list has, I was trying to sell it for convenience, okay? The list, we really need the list for proof that we actually are enforcing the protocol, that we've actually seen the card and that we have a record of it. Okay. It's in trying to sell that concept, I said it's also for convenience so they don't have to show the card each time. And if you don't have the list and something comes up, all you've got is the word of the people that checked the cards that said, I saw a card. And, as I say, it also puts the person who is checking the cards in an awkward position if the member said, I left my card at home. That happens. My wife left her mask at home yesterday. Fortunately, had another one in the car. but, it's really for proof should another lawsuit arise.
Thank you. Richard Lyon, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I'm not sure my question was worth asking.
Okay, we'll trust you on that one. There's a text came in from Russ Salazar, who's the bowling chairman. He says in their sponsored bowling activities, proof of being fully vaccinated or proof of a negative COVID test within the past 3 days, as well as a signed COVID liability waiver is required of all participants. We've added a line to the waiver form that such proof was witnessed by the activity chair. This need only be done once. The state bowling committee maintains the signed form on file. So that sounds very thorough.
Sure.
Back to you, Rick. That's all the questions on text and nobody has hand up.
Well, thank you to all the presenters. I had one quick comment on this, and I don't know that it's been covered today. You did mention the 72-hour negative test, and we've had correspondence and people asking questions about the at-home test that you can buy over the counter.
Right.
And we're having our Christmas parties coming up. I share a home here with the same lady for 57 years, and she's refused to take the vaccination. So my only opportunity for her to attend that is to get the 3-day test, and that would have to be tested today if you're going to have it available by Wednesday, if it was being done this Wednesday. So, it looks like the only alternative is an at-home test or getting done at a facility, it'll turn it around in 72 hours. So am I still of the opinion, or do we have the opinion that the at-home 72-hour test is?
Yeah, that's come up. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, the at-home tests are acceptable. They're, and the reason they are is because the test that's required at the U.S. border for returning U.S. citizens, they accept at-home tests. So we decided that, or at least I decided we'd accept at-home tests if, their border patrol or the customs officials accept them. And those are very quick. I mean, I guess you give yourself the test and they send the results to your phone. And so you actually don't have paperwork, you just carry your phone in. And I forget what the mechanism is for ensuring that it's your test and not somebody else's, but there is a mechanism for that.
Thank you. I spoke too soon. Hugh Thompson has his hand up now.
I'm sorry to bring this up, but it just seems I'm a bit confused. We had a bit of a discussion about vendors, and the previous lawsuit involved a vendor. And so could we just take that a little slower? Our existing protocol for the COVID or other disease, I'm not quite sure what we're anticipating branches do in the way, I mean, it's one thing when you hire somebody to come put on some meal for you. It's another thing if you're going someplace into their facility, but the exposure is the same. And so I've just kind of forgotten in our protocol, how are we addressing that and how are we protecting the members from the vendors causing the exposure? Can you help me there?
I would like to address part of this and ask Craig to chime in as well. For vendors, we have our Form 6364, which deals with the question and the protocols, and that we are named as an additional insured under the circumstances for that vendor. When you say the vendor in the previous lawsuit, that was a situation where he was also a member of the branch. So previously, my own branch, 149, would do their own Ladies' Day barbecue. And because of that, we decided the exposure was considerable. That it would be best if we had a catering facility do it, which we have arranged to do going forward. Craig, you might want to add on to that.
Unmute.
Do we lose Craig?
There I am. Yeah, the Form 64 is can be used not only for caterers but for other vendors as well. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, so maybe the question was, do we have to ensure that they've been vaccinated? And I guess I already addressed that. We don't have a policy on that. We only are requiring them to name us as additional insureds.
Thank you, Jits. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up.
No, there was a good question that just came in on a chat.
Okay, I didn't see
A
that.
real good question.
I missed it. Yeah. Okay. We're planning to have a choir at our holiday lunch on December 2nd. Young ladies, teenagers, do they have to provide proof of vax to come and sing to our members? Thanks for catching it, Andy.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And they're teenagers. I wonder if they can even get vaccinated. I think
yes.
After over 12, they can now, right?
Yep.
It's over 5, I think.
Well, under the current protocol, if it's an indoor activity, they should be vaccinated and unfortunately sign waivers as well.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. And I know this is gonna come up. We have at our ladies' luncheon, I think we have some singers coming in from the outside who are adults, and we're requiring to show proof vaccination and sign a waiver. Frankly,
the branch maybe could agree to buy the at-home test for them and have it administered.
Yeah, that would work.
So just one other comment. I've recently tried to get a booster shot. I've also tried to get a 3-day turnaround on tests. And the booster shots, the earliest booster shot I could get was Christmas. And I tried all the Safeways within 50 miles of me and all the Walgreens within 50 miles of me. So
Amazon. Amazon.
Yeah, it may be. Yeah. And negative tests within 72 hours, nearly impossible in Silicon Valley. And so we have this push to get all of this done, but we don't have the supply or the availability to do it, at least in Silicon Valley.
I did check on Amazon and they're guaranteeing next day or 2-day delivery. So
how do they do it though, Rick? How do you do it?
Might check it.
I will.
Did you try the drive-in facilities? I know our county in San Mateo has drive-in facilities for boosters, and I think they have something similar to that in Santa Clara County.
Santa Clara County has the fairgrounds that they've opened, yes.
Yeah, and I know some friends of mine have just showed up and gotten their boosters immediately.
Yeah. And you can do the same thing with testing too, but there's no guarantee it'll be within 72 hours. You can show up, but they won't guarantee. So
yes, possibly CVS.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind us that one of the very earliest outbreaks up in Washington State 2 years ago was a group of choir people, and they were singing their lungs out, and a whole bunch of people caught COVID from that. So because we now know it's coming from the mouth and the aerosol spreads the disease, I'd say we'd have to be very careful with a choir, especially a teenage choir singing at the top of their voices. It could be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a question there whether who signs the waiver. I think would have to be the guardians. You agree with that, Stu?
I am.
We've also got Fred Warren has raised his hand. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, I'm like you. I feel that I thought we've covered everything, but there's one that still concerns me. Right now, our luncheons are back again with an established restaurant. And as you probably know, that a lot of these restaurants have had a hard time keeping help. So every month that we go in and have a luncheon, their staff could be different. So asking them to prove for our use their maintenance of a list concerns me as to how effective we can be in keeping track of that to keep us without having a liability there.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, it's not currently required to have vendors show proof of vaccination. Maybe we should, but we thought that would be, quite a hassle. All we're asking him to do is name us as additional insureds.
Okay, and I have the same concern about the at-home tests, assuring that we have something that's verifiable on our list from such a at-home test.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the U.S. government says they're okay. So at least for now, we're saying they're okay.
Thank you.
Back to you, Rick.
Anything else?
Derek, I had a couple of questions.
Sorry, go ahead.
One for Alan. How long are the waivers valid for?
They should be forever.
Okay. And another one for Dale. What's the process for getting a waiver? I'm going into my 6th year as Big Sur.
I think all you have to do is contact your regional director or the president. And I'd start with the regional director.
Okay.
Just send them a letter requesting approval to do that.
All right.
Heck, you can send me an email and I would approve it.
I know you
send
would,
it
you've been good at doing that.
Yeah.
Remember,
I
number
will
one
send it right
priority,
away for you.
remember, number one priority is survival of the branch.
I'll send you an
Amen.
email, Stu.
Okay.
No
good.
problem. Thank you.
Well, we've run over our time by 20 minutes, but these were all good topics. And I
Yes.
thank you for the last 75 participants that hung in there. So tomorrow is the day of activities. We'll be discussing golf and bowling and everything else that we do in activities. So I welcome to join back in tomorrow morning. And other than that,
Rick, hang on.
enjoy the football game tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Rick,
Yes, sir.
2 late messages popped up. Servers and perhaps singers should be masked. And the other person says vendors are required to wear masks while working. And that's certainly true at the hotel where my branch has its lunch.
Right.
Yeah. Those are generally county regulations.
Yes.
Pretty hard for singers to wear masks, but God bless them.
Back to you, Rick.
Okay. Signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody's attendance.
Thank you,
and
Rick.
the
Great
presenters.
job.
You all
Thank you,
did a
Rick.
great job. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you very
Good
much.
stuff.